Hello, welcome back to the studio. So tonight I thought we would do a little bit of a different painting. I'm going to do a little bit of a wet painting. I've been just toying around with doing some wet stuff, and the other night I did some daisies. They came out kind of like this. I thought they looked pretty neat, so we're going to try and duplicate something like this. I don't really like the way my background turned out, but we're going to change that a little bit. I've got a little color chart I made on how I want to do that, but before we get to this, I think what we need to do is draw our daisies on here, and so I'm going to do that, and we're just going to do it kind of real loose. And I'm going to have this daisy kind of pointing right at me, so the button right in the middle is going to be almost exactly round, right? And then our petals from that just come out like this. If they're not exactly right, that's okay. There we go. Just one simple quick daisy. We're going to do something really wet anyways, and our stem that goes down there. I'm going to put another one here. It's going to be leading just maybe a little bit more. I'm going to put a little bit of some curve on these petals. Make it look like it's bent down just a little bit. There we go. I hope you can see that. Just drawing in a couple of those, and there's our button in the center. I'll pull this down that way. Alright, I'm going to have one. Let's see, how many should we do? I'll do another one here. And I'm going to have this one, this will be a little bigger, but I have this one looking up basically. Oops, there we go. Something like that. And we can see a couple of them in the back, maybe back there. There we go. So we've got 3 flowers there. Maybe we got another one over here that kind of a bud waiting to come out. If we got one of those, might as well put another one on. Can come right over there. There we go. So we've got 5 things on there. People like when you have 5 different elements in your picture, or an odd number of elements anyways, I should say. In your picture, I'm going to kind of just attach a leaf onto this. I think the leaves, if I'm remembering this, kind of oval shape, but they have a bit of a jagged part to them. Something like that. I don't want to do too many of them. That might be a little big. Something like that. Anyways, I want to leave a lot of open space for our model background that's going to go in there. So there we go. I hope you guys can see that. It is pretty light. I didn't want to make it too dark. But there's our base drawing. I'm going to use my my big palette tonight, so I've got to back this out so we can get enough room to get this on my table. There we go. Let's see if I can get it over and you can see, well, at least part of that. Pull up my chair. Alright, I'm going to start with a big wet brush here. We're not doing anything that's going to need a lot of precision. Here we're just going to drop some color on. If we get it in the petals, that's great. If we get it around the petals, that's good too. Actually, 1, 2, 3, we're done with those already. These look a lot more like Black-Eyed Susans to me already than they do Daisies, but that's fine. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of my sap green here. Where's my color chart so I know exactly what I'm using? There we go. I always keep that handy. Grab a little bit of, I like this cobalt green. There it is. I'm going to try and mix it over here so you can see it, even though it's out of view. I like that cobalt green. It's just a little cooler green. I'm going to draw in a couple of our stems here and give a quick shape to some of our leaves. Let's see, there we go. There's a leaf in our stem. Alright. This is a fun method because I don't have to be too precise. I can just kind of lay the color on here, and we're going to expect that we're going to get something in the end that's just about like what we're looking for. Okay, I'm cleaning my brush off in my water. I want to give a little bit more color there, and on a couple of these I want to see if I can't get rid of a little bit of a hard edge. Maybe not all of them. I'm just going to pull that color out just a bit, and since we're going to be going around it anyways with a color that's a little bit darker, we can get away with that. I'm going to try and pull that off. Just going to get my brush nice and dry. This one holds so much water it's hard to dry out. There we go. Dry it out and just put a little dab of color back in there. That'll work. There we go. I'm not going to put on the buttons in the center. I'm going to do those last because these are going to be quite dark, and any colors that run in there I want to be able to cover up, so we're going to leave those. Alright, I'm going to get a little, well, I was going to get a little smaller brush. Maybe we'll stay with this. But I want to get this to stay. I'm just going to pick up with my brush. I was going to dry this off, but I don't think I'm going to need to. I'm looking at it. It's not that wet, and we're going to get everything wet anyways. We're doing a wet and wet painting. We're just going to go for it. So I'm using a little bit of cobalt teal right here, and I'm going to start up in the corner. I'm going to drop in some cobalt teal. I'm going to kind of try to go around my petals. If I don't get it exact, we're not going to worry about it too much. We hit it a little bit fat, like right there. That's okay too. In the end, all these colors are going to mix together a little bit. They're going to be a fun something to look at. There we go. There's some cobalt teal on there. I don't want to move from my cobalt teal. I think I'm going to mix into that something a little bit darker. I'm going to mix in a little bit of turquoise. Oops, I didn't mix that one in quite well enough. And I'm going to let this turquoise do what it wants to do in here. There we go. Trying to leave my painting right where it is and not move it to make it as easy for you guys to see. Sometimes it makes it a little bit tougher for me to paint. That's alright. There we go. I'm getting my turquoise in there. And see, we've run through this petal right here. I hope you can see that. I don't have this zoomed in all that much. Maybe I can move the palette off just a little bit and zoom you in. There we go. All right. There we go. Just, you know, I'm minding the marks that we made with the pencil as a guide, but not the definitive thing. I'm letting my brush do what it wants to do here. There we go. Whoops. I went right over that one. Right over that petal, but I'm going to try not to let that bother me. Alright, I'm going to go into a little bit of phthalo blue, which is a little darker blue. I believe it's got a little bit of red in it here. A little bit of a different color. Let's see, I can get way in there. There we go. And you can see, even though I've drawn these petals on, just let this go out to the side there. Even though I've drawn these petals on, I can totally reshape them with the paint that I'm putting on right now. If I look at it and I don't like the way it looks, I just move it. Just move that petal ever so slightly. It'll go exactly where I want it to. It'll look exactly how I want it to when it's done. It'll do the same for you when you do yours. There we go. Right around that button. Just like that. And I'm still using a fairly big brush here. I'm trying not to worry about it. Normally I would have switched down to a much smaller brush by now, but trying to stay with the big one. And this is just gonna help me cover a lot more ground all at once. Alright, and now I've got my phthalo blue on there. I'm going to try to mix in, maybe I'll mix in a little bit of this pyrrole red. It's a very strong color, in with my blue, which is already a little bit red. It's going to start to make a bit of a purple. You know, I'm going to keep some of my blue over here a little bit more. There we go, and move my purple over here. And I'm going to move from a lighter blue down to a darker purple on this side. Not working exactly. The colors aren't working exactly the way I thought they were going to when I started this. I like the blue up here. I like the blue down here. I'm not convinced that going into this purplish color was the best way to go. Over here. But that's okay. We've done it at this point. Just going to darken this up. There we go. And I did tape this down because I knew it's going to get pretty wet, and it is. And I think at this point I need to break out the hairdryer and give this a little bit of a dry. I will be right back. Let me put you on pause. Okay, here we are. We have dried off the painting, or I guess there's a little bit left here, but mostly dried off the painting. So I'm going to step down to a smaller brush. This is a number 4. I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow ochre. Here we go, and I'm going to paint in. That's thick. Might be too thick. I'm going to paint in the tops of these buttons a little bit. There we go. Just about like that. We could paint the whole thing in, I guess. So I want that yellow ochre to be the top of these. I'm going to move into something a little darker, a burnt umber. Oops, there it is. Burnt umber to go along the bottom of these. There we go. My page is hot right now. The paper, from being on a hairdryer, this is drying a little bit more quickly than I thought it was going to. Just fine. I'm going to re-wet my brush, dab it off, mostly dry, and just put a line. Just run it right over that line. Will help those blend together. We're going to come back and do something there anyways. But while that dries a little bit, we need to make a couple of decisions down here in the body of our painting where we have our stems. I'm going to use a mix of sap green and our cobalt green just to make it a little bit more intense than what we have here, and need to make a decision on a couple of these things. What's going to be in the foreground, what's going to be behind. I'm going to put a dab of extra color on some of these, my buds here, the bottom half, just a bit of the stem, and that's going to give us just a little bit of shadow to go on here. I'm not looking for any real definition on any of this. Let's see, I don't know which one. This one should go under that one, I guess, so I'm going to use that here. And I could use a cobalt blue or a French ultramarine to put on this little bit of dark area. I'm just using basically the same color with a little bit more intensity, maybe a little bit of blue mixed in there, just to give it the indication of maybe a little bit of shadow here or there. And I think that's all I want to do with that. Okay, I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to go back to a yellow over here. Let me mix my brush a little bit better. I want to differentiate this just ever so slightly if I can. That from the green. This one's not so important because it's already got a little bit there. And now I'm going to mix up a really watery blue mixture. Really a watery blue. And this is going to be my shadow color inside my petals here. Just, it's got to be really pale because we're painting it on top of this yellow and you're really going to be able to see it. So there we go. A little bit maybe. Ooh, that's even too strong, that little bit there. I don't know how much you can see. Maybe I should do this. Let's see. Zoom you in a little bit so we can see. I'm going to have to move my palette, move the painting. I've got some blue that's very weak here. Let's look at this one. I'm going to use this kind of as my shadow side over here. And I've got, that's too strong. Got a little bit of shadow on the tips here. Got a little bit here. I know this leaf is, that petal's behind, that petal's behind. There we go. We don't need to do too much. We just we just need to put in some basic indications again. Now my blue's getting too strong again. That's stronger than I want. There we go. Just a little. In this instance, a little goes a long way. There we go. If you put it on just right, it'll look like a bit of an indentation on the flower. Just a touch of a shadow. There we go. Now I want to come back up here and fix. Come on. Oh, my paints aren't mixing for me. Just going to put in just a little bit more of this brown right along the edge there. Just make sure it's nice and smoothed out. You can even come back with just a touch of that, our yellow mixture right there, just to brighten it up ever so slightly. I'm going to take my ochre color, just dab. That's going to give me a bit of a shadow. And there we go. There are our daisies in loose watercolors. You know what? This is them. I got a little shadow. I need a little shadow there I need to put on. I can't go without it. I don't know why. It looked to me like I needed something there. But here's our daisies in a loose watercolor style. I'm going to sign that. Quick and easy. Just like that. That's how we do it. So if you like it, give a like to the video, subscribe to my channel. I put out at least a video every week. I would love to paint with you again, so hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time. Alright, thanks so much. Bye-bye.